Hi, welcome to Hissy Fit. I'm Kimber, this is Mr. Darcy, and my partner and I are having a great time writing an original story called The Wind Witch. And we are about to read to you from chapter 4, The Legacy. Consider this a little e-gift to you guys because, oh my gosh, almost 2,000 subscribers in the past 2 weeks. Thank you so very much. So sit back with a cozy cuppa and enjoy this chapter of The Wind Witch, The Legacy, by Kimber Dillon and Adrielle Anderson.
After a modest lunch, Kali began to clear the dishes. Her father kissed her mother, nodded to Kali, and put his hat on to head back into the field to tend to his crops. After Kali washed it while her mother dried and put away each dish, Zemlya looked intently at Kali until her daughter stopped fussing and looked back at her mother. Mama, you want me to prepare the ginseng we gathered? You are right. There were so many lovely roots. What? Kali faltered under her mother's gaze. Walk with me, Kali, Zemlya said, untying her apron and putting on her bonnet. Kali followed her outside. Being the middle of the day, there wasn't much stirring outside. Much like Ivan, the Corsac foxes, the marbled polecats, and other steppe animals were resting, hidden away from the steppe eagle that soared high above in a lonely search for her next meal. Kali was glad they were safe, though she admired the beautiful bird of prey. You had a visit from Lev today, her mother said matter-of-factly. Yes, Kali said. Well? You have always been one to get straight to the point, Mama, Zemlya laughed. I am an earth witch not only in power, my Kali. I am earth, through and through, solid and blunt, and do not play as the wind does. I should have been a boy, Mama, Kali almost whispered. I should have been a boy and a wind witch. And yet, you are neither, Zemlya said. Then, as a wistful afterthought, perhaps it is a blessing. Kali stopped, staring at her mother, who halted her step as well. Your power has saved so many, Mama. How can you say that? Nothing is all good, nothing is all bad, Kali. I have been very grateful for the gift I have been given, but I have also resented it mightily. Grandfather Volos, Kali said with a touch of reverence in her voice. Her mother had a touch of reverence whenever she spoke of her grandfather, so Kali had one too. As you know, I lost him when I was just coming into my own earth powers. 15 is too young to lose your father, much less your mentor, Zemlya said with a touch of sadness in her voice. Ah, Kali, I wish you could have known him. Never a kinder soul lived. You think I have saved many lives. Your grandfather saved an entire village from burning to the ground. Kali did not remember hearing this story before, but was confused. But Mama, if he could combat fire, how... How did they kill your water witch grandfather? By burning him alive? Zemlya said with uncharacteristic anger. Yes, it's high time you knew. She sighed deeply and began walking again as if to give motion to her feeling. Kali matched her pace. The somewhat disconnected, vague stories would finally have their gaps filled in, and Kali's long-time curiosity would hopefully be satisfied, not only about her legacy, but also about herself. In our family, the lineage has always been one child being born each generation, and only one. Male child to female parents, spirit witch to fire witch, the water witch to earth witch, the wind witch to spirit witch. For as long as parents and grandparents have told stories about the family, we have often lived as the travelers lived, moving from one village to another, forced out by fear and suspicion. We would be able to hide for a while, sometimes months, less often years, and settle for a time to raise our children in more stable condition until our secret was discovered. It is not good, Kali, to live under a shroud of secrecy, her normally prosaic mother suddenly reflected. Secrets make you sick and can turn friends into enemies. Remember that, and be careful with the lies you weave. Some cannot be helped, but should be told as little as possible. The mother and daughter walked for a few minutes as Zemlya gathered her thoughts. Your grandfather Volos loved animals too, have I ever told you? Zemlya suddenly said and smiled in warm remembrance, taken slightly aback by this, expecting something much deeper and darker considering the story. Kali fumbled over her response. Maybe? Oh, he did so much. You had your jerboa, and he had his fish out, Andre. A beautiful creature. He didn't swoop after his prey, not he. He stood near the water, one claw clinging to a root, and watched the water until a tasty fish swam nearby. And before you knew it, he splashed up his head, gulping down his meal. And so smart he was too. Papa and he played a game he called Go Find. Papa would say, Andre, go find a stick, and that owl would bring back a stick. Andre, go find a rock. And sure as you are walking beside me, that owl would bring him back a rock. Do you know? Andre never got it wrong? He could even bring back the size of rock Papa asked for. Kali nodded and smiled indulgently. She did remember this story, and fondly. She knew her mother was stalling a bit, as the story she was about to tell was a painful one, but she didn't mind. In fact, this gave Kali an opportunity to ask a question she had always wanted to ask of her mother. Mama, did you ever have an animal you befriended? Zemlya shook her head. I like animals well enough, and liked watching Papa and Andre, just as I like watching you and Ivan. But to be honest, they never spoke to me like the plants and trees and herbs do. Oh, it's not the same, of course. They don't express the same as we do, or like any creature that can move on its own, apart from actual growing. Their communication is much more subtle, but not less worthy. They have a more communal way of being. Why, Kali, I've heard of entire forests that are actually one tree, so connected are their roots. Ivan is different from other Jerboas, Kali said. I'm sure Andre was different than other fish owls. Papa and he were often together, just like you and Ivan. The last time I saw Andre was earlier that day, right before the night of the fire. Zemlya cleared her throat. It is hard to remember, my Kali. It is even harder to tell. Some months before the fire that took your grandfather, the village that our family had settled in for a few years began having troubles, serious troubles. Crops were dying and no one knew why. People were getting sick, more so than usual. Something was wrong with the water. No one knew why. Sometimes trouble breeds even more trouble. The dry crops, the dry grasses, the deep summer. A grass fire started somehow in the plains and threatened the whole village. Every hand began digging a fire break, but the flames licked fast towards us, and we all began to fear losing not only our homes, but our very lives. So widespread was the fire. We were all so frightened. Some began running to the nearby river with buckets to fill the ditch, but it wasn't going to be enough. Zemlya's eyes lit up. My papa, who had managed to keep his powers to himself and our family for so long, suddenly stood up with quiet confidence in the middle of the chaos and panic and called forth the waters from the nearby river to flow towards the ditch, filling it completely. It was enough. He saved the village and everyone in it. Kali's mother paused a moment, her feet carrying her along with her story. Everyone could tell what happened. It was too obvious to ignore. They were so grateful. I'll never forget the looks of adoration on their faces as they embraced my papa in relief. All was right for the first time, it seemed. Not just within our own little family, but within the whole community. It seemed as if the tide was turning for us, until that crisis was over and people began wondering why a water witch wouldn't save them from the longer problem of the sick water. They begged my papa for help, offered him everything valuable they had if he would just fix the water, make it healthy again. Kali was confused. Why didn't he, Mama? He couldn't, Zemlya answered simply. But why? Believe me, he tried. He could make a small bucket of water smell and taste much better, sure. But fix a whole river? No. But could he convince them of that? Zemlya gave a long sigh. Unfortunately, no. Nothing your grandfather said helped. Some people began the usual shunning. Some outright yelled and threatened and shamed. Then, one horrible night, several torches were flung into our little house. I woke up, choking, flames all around me. I screamed for my papa. Mama had been gone for several years, as you know, having fallen ill and never gotten better. It was just the two of us. When I saw my papa's face, I had never seen him so scared, so angry. It was as if the flames were captured in his eyes. He called forth the water from the river. It took him great effort, but he managed to clear a safe path for me to escape through the closest window. I reached out my hand before I crawled through the outside, pleading with him to join me. Run, Zemlya, run and do not look back. I will join you. Run, now! God help me, I did as he bid me to do. Oh, Kali, he never joined me. He must not have had the strength. Kali held her mother as she sobbed, tears running down her own face as she comforted the older woman. She couldn't imagine being all alone in the world at 15 years of age. She couldn't imagine going through such a horrific ordeal and losing everything. Kali was struck by how strong her mother was and continued to be. Such gentle, healing, subtle magic to emit from such a strong woman. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, Kali could only hope to be half the woman as her mama. Zemlya straightened herself, kissed her daughter's forehead, and continued her tale. No matter how dark the place you find yourself in, Kali, there is always light, always something good to come out of the most tragic events. Papa, Kali said. Yes. His aunt lived in that village and was among a handful that quietly believed in my papa. She sent me to her nephew's farm, and I met your dear papa, who is my rock as much as you are the light of my heart. Mama, you have been through so much, and yet still have so much love in your heart. It amazes me. The wind blew softly around the two women, singing a sweet lullaby of comfort and peace, bending the grasses in rhythmic harmony as the sun warmed their faces. After a few moments, Zemlya put one arm around Kali's shoulders, and they began walking again, even as the air felt lighter between them. Thank you, Mama. Thank you for telling me this. I know it was a difficult story to tell, and I'd really appreciate it. Forgive me, Callie. Mama, no, I meant it. Forgive me for pushing you to marry Lev. I know why you refused him, Zemlia said calmly. You do? Callie said. Zemlia nodded reassuringly. You should be able to experience the kind of love your papa and I have. This you do not have with Lev. Callie looked in sheer relief at her mother. Yes, Mama. Oh, you do understand, and gave her a grateful hug. I should have listened to you, Callie. You have always been honest about your true feelings. Something like latent guilt shadowed Callie's heart at her mother's words. But she shrugged these feelings aside to revel in the understanding her mother and she had just reached. Thank you for understanding, Mama. You have itchy feet, my child, just as many people your age have, and you are brave to scratch them. Just remember, Callie, you are exactly as you should be. If you could have seen your Papa and Mama's faces when we first saw your beautiful face, you would know we were never disappointed. Not then, not now. Really, Mama? Really, my Callie. Callie nodded, too grateful for words, and they turned around, back in the direction of their cottage.
We hope you have enjoyed this chapter of The Wind Witch. Thank you so much to these people who have been wonderfully supportive of this channel. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you so much for watching till the end, and we will see you next time. Remember, be your own safe place, and don't throw a hissy fit.